Have you ever walked away from someone and felt like you lost yourself along the way? Maybe you were constantly questioning your worth. Maybe you felt like you were too much or not enough. Maybe you even wondered if you were going crazy. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone, and you're definitely not too sensitive. Today, we're going to talk about something that affects millions of people, often in silence: toxic relationships, and the lasting damage they can cause. This is part 1 of our deep dive into the long-term effects of toxic relationships, a journey to help you understand what happened, why it still hurts, and how you can heal. What is a toxic relationship? Let's get something straight right away. Every relationship has conflict. No couple or friendship or family is perfect. Disagreements happen. People mess up. But a toxic relationship isn't about the occasional fight or moment of selfishness. It's a pattern. It's when someone consistently makes you feel small, confused, drained, or unsafe. It's when love feels more like walking on eggshells than being held. It's a dynamic where power, control, guilt, or fear replaces trust and care. And here's the kicker: toxic relationships aren't always loud. Sometimes they're quietly damaging. They can hide behind sweet words, charming smiles, and empty promises. Types of toxic relationships. Let's break it down. Toxicity shows up in different ways, and sometimes it's hard to recognize until you're deep in it. Here are some of the most common types. The gaslighter. They twist reality. You bring up something that hurt you, and somehow, you're the one apologizing. You start to doubt your memory, your emotions, even your sanity. That never happened. You're just being dramatic. You're imagining things. Sound familiar? Gaslighting is emotional abuse. It's not a debate, it's manipulation. The narcissist. Everything revolves around them. Your feelings? Inconvenient. Your needs? Too much. They'll love bomb you, then withdraw affection to control you. You might feel lucky to be loved by them, even as you're shrinking inside. The controller. They isolate you from friends, make decisions for you, guilt you into doing things their way. You stop speaking up because it's just easier to go along. You lose your voice until it feels like you never had one. The cold shoulder. They punish you with silence, withdraw affection when you displease them. You feel like you're chasing love, earning it every single day. You crave crumbs of connection and call it affection. The trauma bond. It's that addictive push-pull cycle. One day, they love you more than anyone ever has. The next, they hurt you deeply. The highs are euphoric, the lows, unbearable. You feel stuck. You want to leave, but the bond feels too strong. Why do we stay? This is one of the most painful questions survivors hear. Why didn't you just leave? Here's the truth. It's never that simple. There are many reasons people stay in toxic relationships, and none of them mean they're weak. 1. Psychological conditioning. When someone chips away at your confidence, over time, you stop believing you deserve better. Toxic partners often use a cycle of abuse, love, tension, abuse, apologies, love again. It's confusing, and it's by design. 2. Trauma bonding. Those extreme highs and lows literally affect your brain chemistry. Dopamine, adrenaline, cortisol. Your body becomes addicted to the cycle just like a drug. It's not about logic, it's about survival. 3. Childhood patterns. If you grew up around emotional chaos or neglect, toxic relationships might feel familiar. Even if they hurt, they feel like home. Your brain confuses familiarity with safety. 4. Hope. You remember how good it was in the beginning. You hold on to hope that things can go back to that. You keep trying. You keep loving. And sometimes, you keep losing yourself. The hidden cost of staying toxic relationships are often slow poison. At first you might think, they're just stressed. It's not always like this. Maybe it's me. But little by little, you start changing. And not in a good way. You become someone you barely recognize. You laugh less, doubt yourself more, walk on eggshells, apologize for your emotions, keep secrets, make excuses, shut down, numb out. You learn to survive, not live. Toxic love versus healthy love. Here's a truth that takes many people years to learn. Toxic love feels intense, but healthy love feels safe. If you grew up around drama or dysfunction, calm love might seem boring at first. You might crave chaos, thinking it's passion. But here's the difference. Toxic love, highs and lows. Healthy love, stability. Toxic love, fear of abandonment. Healthy love, mutual trust. Toxic love, control and manipulation. Healthy love, respect and freedom. Toxic love. You feel not enough. Healthy love. You feel seen and valued. Toxic love. You're walking on eggshells. Healthy love. You can speak freely. Love should never make you feel small, afraid, or confused all the time. That's not love. That's control, wrapped in affection. You're not crazy, you're waking up. If this resonates with you, I want you to hear something loud and clear. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not imagining it. You are not the problem. You're waking up. And that's incredibly brave. Recognizing a toxic relationship is the first and hardest step. It means your intuition is working. It means some part of you knows you deserve better. In next part, we'll explore what happens after the relationship ends or even while you're still in it. The emotional and psychological scars can run deep, but healing is possible. We'll talk about how toxic relationships rewire your brain, the anxiety, self-doubt, and depression that linger, and why healing is not just possible but necessary. So take a breath. You've started the journey, and I'll be here with you every step of the way. Low self-esteem, the quiet collapse. One of the first casualties in a toxic relationship is your self-esteem. Maybe you used to be confident, opinionated, alive. But over time, that confidence gets chipped away by constant criticism, subtle jabs, or complete disregard. You're told, "You're too sensitive. No one else would put up with you. You always overreact." Eventually, you stop trusting yourself. You start believing the voice that put you down. And even after you leave, that voice might still be in your head. That's the tragic part. Toxic partners may be gone, but their words echo. Anxiety. Living in fight or flight. Have you ever felt constantly on edge, even in calm situations? That's relationship-induced anxiety, and it's real. When you're in a toxic dynamic, your body gets used to living in survival mode. You're always anticipating the next mood swing, the next outburst, the next wave of guilt or blame. So even when you leave, your nervous system is still in high alert. You might jump when your phone buzzes, obsess over how people perceive you, rehearse conversations in your head, struggle to relax, even alone. Your mind got trained to scan for danger, and it needs time and care to unlearn that. Depression and emotional numbness. Toxic relationships don't just make you sad, they can leave you emotionally hollow. When someone constantly invalidates your emotions, punishes your joy, or overwhelms you with chaos, your brain protects you by numbing out. You stop feeling excited, you stop caring, you stop dreaming. You might withdraw from friends, stop doing things you love, or just feel empty as if you're walking through fog every day. It's not just sadness, it's survival. Confusion and cognitive dissonance. Here's one of the most unsettling effects of a toxic relationship. You don't know what's real anymore. You remember the good times, the laughter, the passion, the promises, but then you remember the lies, the pain, the manipulation, and your brain can't make it make sense. This is called cognitive dissonance, when your beliefs and your experiences conflict. Your mind spins in circles, trying to make sense of it all. You ask yourself, was it really that bad? Maybe I overreacted, but they said they loved me. This confusion keeps you stuck, and it's not your fault. It's a symptom of emotional abuse. Guilt and shame. Toxic people are masters at shifting blame. Even when they're wrong, they make it feel like your fault. So when the relationship ends, many survivors feel crushing guilt for not leaving sooner, for staying too long, or for finally walking away. And shame? That runs even deeper. Shame whispers, "You should have known better. You let them treat you like that. You're weak." But let's set the record straight. You did the best you could with what you had, while trying to love someone who hurt you. That's not weakness, that's heartbreak. Trust issues. When someone you loved betrayed your trust over and over, it changes how you view people. You might become suspicious of everyone, or you trust too quickly, desperate for kindness, or you keep everyone at arm's length. None of this is your fault. Your brain is trying to protect you. But living in fear of betrayal can make even healthy relationships feel unsafe. Rebuilding trust is possible, but it takes time. And it starts with trusting yourself again. Emotional flashbacks. Sometimes, something small, a tone of voice, a phrase, a smell, can send you spiraling back to old pain. You might freeze up suddenly, feel anxious without knowing why. Cry during conflict, even if it's minor panic when someone pulls away. These are emotional flashbacks, and they're common among survivors of long-term emotional abuse. Your body remembers what your mind has tried to bury. Learned helplessness. This is a painful one. When you've been told directly or indirectly that nothing you do is right, that you're not capable, or that you're not worth fighting for, eventually you stop trying. You stop believing you can change your life. You stop thinking things could ever get better. You just give up. This is called learned helplessness, and it's how toxic environments break people down. But the truth is, your power isn't gone. It's just buried, and it can be uncovered again. Hyper-independence. On the flip side, some survivors swing hard into hyper-independence. After being hurt, you tell yourself, "I don't need anyone. I'll never depend on anyone again. I've got this, alone." And while independence is good, this kind of isolation is armor. It keeps people out, not to protect your space, but to protect your heart. Because deep down, you're afraid that if you let someone in, they'll hurt you too. But healing means learning how to let safe people in. Slowly, carefully, and on your terms. Internalized criticism. Here's one of the most heartbreaking effects of toxic relationships. You start talking to yourself the way they talk to you. You look in the mirror and hear their voice. You make a mistake and say, "I'm so stupid." You doubt your worth, your intelligence, your beauty. This internal critic didn't come from nowhere. It was planted and watered by someone who didn't value you. But here's the good news. That voice isn't yours. You can unlearn it. You can rewrite it. You can learn to speak to yourself with kindness again. Struggling to feel normal again. After a toxic relationship, peace might feel unfamiliar, even wrong. You might find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop. Starting fights just to feel something. Distrusting calm because it feels boring. Your brain got wired for chaos, and calm feels unsafe. This is part of healing, retraining your nervous system to feel okay with feeling okay. You are not alone. If you've experienced any of these things, please know you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're not alone. These are normal responses to abnormal treatment. Your mind and body were just trying to survive. But now, it's time to heal. Not overnight, not perfectly, but step by step. Next time, we'll explore the physical and behavioral consequences of toxic relationships. From sleep problems to health issues to addictive patterns, the effects go deeper than most people realize. We'll talk about how toxic stress shows up in your body, why you might overwork, overeat, or over-isolate, and how to start listening to your body again. So take a breath. You made it through this part, and that's something to be proud of. Sometimes, trauma doesn't just sit in your mind, it settles into your body. After being in a toxic relationship, you might notice changes that don't seem connected at first. Trouble sleeping, chronic pain, stomach issues, headaches, fatigue. These aren't just random symptoms. They're your body's way of saying, "I've been through something." When you're constantly in fight or flight mode, your nervous system never gets a break. Your body is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, almost all the time. That's not sustainable. You might have gotten used to the tension, but your body didn't. It stored it. You may have woken up every morning bracing for conflict, walked into rooms scanning for mood shifts, held your breath when their name lit up your phone. That kind of stress daily, over weeks or years, adds up. Your immune system weakens, your digestion changes, your hormones become unbalanced. This is why survivors often deal with insomnia, autoimmune issues, adrenal fatigue, and even panic attacks. And often they have no idea it's all connected to emotional trauma. But it is. And no, you're not being dramatic. Your body remembers even when your mind tries to forget. Then there's the exhaustion. Not just the physical kind, but emotional burnout. You're tired of pretending everything's fine. You're tired of shrinking yourself. You're tired of trying to fix it, trying to be enough, trying not to feel broken. So maybe you check out, you go numb, or you get busy. You overwork, overthink, overeat, overgive. Why? Because distraction feels safer than stillness. Stillness makes room for emotions, and emotions feel overwhelming after you've spent years suppressing them to keep the peace. This is why many survivors develop what we call coping behaviors. Some look like classic addictions: alcohol, smoking, compulsive eating, but others are more socially accepted. Constantly working, staying glued to your phone, obsessing over routines, scrolling endlessly just to feel nothing for a while. You're not weak for doing this. You were trying to survive in the only ways you knew how. Toxic relationships also change your behavioral patterns in subtle ways. Maybe you started lying to avoid conflict, to protect yourself, or to preserve their image, even little lies. No, it's fine. I'm just tired. They didn't mean it. Maybe you became a people pleaser. You learned to anticipate what others wanted before they even said it. You trained yourself to be agreeable, accommodating, invisible. You made yourself small so they wouldn't explode, or leave, or punish you. That habit doesn't magically disappear when the relationship ends. You might carry it into work, friendships, or even future romantic connections. Suddenly, you're saying yes when you mean no. You're smiling when you want to cry. You're letting people cross lines because setting boundaries still feels unsafe. But that can change. It really can. Let's talk about isolation. Toxic people often push you away from your support systems, sometimes aggressively, sometimes in quiet, manipulative ways. They might say, "Your friends don't get us. Your family always judges me. Why do you need anyone but me?" At first, you may have believed it. Later, you just didn't want to deal with the conflict. Eventually, you found yourself alone. Even after the relationship ends, that isolation can stay. You don't know how to ask for help. You feel embarrassed. You worry that people won't understand, or worse, that they'll judge you for staying as long as you did. But here's the truth. You don't have to explain your pain to deserve support. You are allowed to reconnect, to rebuild, to reach out. And yes, it will feel awkward at first. But people who care about you will meet you where you are. Sometimes, the effects show up in how you handle emotions. You may find yourself afraid of your own feelings. Anger feels dangerous. Sadness feels weak. Vulnerability feels like a setup for disappointment. In a toxic dynamic, your emotions were probably turned against you. If you got angry, you were crazy. If you cried, you were too sensitive. If you pulled away, you were cold. Over time, you learned to suppress, to disconnect, to question whether what you felt was even real. So now, feeling anything feels risky. You don't want to be too much, so you try to be nothing instead. But emotions are just signals. They're not threats. They're trying to help you understand yourself again. Another way toxic relationships affect us: boundaries, or the lack of them. In a healthy relationship, boundaries are respected. In a toxic one, they're often ignored or punished. Maybe you stopped saying no. Maybe you stopped having opinions. Maybe you gave up privacy, space, and self-respect just to keep the peace. And now, boundaries feel uncomfortable. You worry that setting limits makes you selfish. You feel guilty for saying no. You wonder if you're asking for too much. But here's something to remember. Healthy people respect boundaries. Toxic people fear them. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks, and you get to decide who comes in and how far. Many survivors also struggle with emotional regulation after leaving a toxic relationship. You might overreact to small things, feel completely numb to big things, swing between emotional extremes, feel like you're not in control of yourself. This is all part of the emotional fallout. Your nervous system spent too long trying to guess what was safe or dangerous. It got confused. It started seeing threats everywhere, even where there aren't any. The solution isn't to toughen up, it's to re-regulate. That means grounding exercises, deep breathing, therapy, journaling, or anything that helps your mind and body reconnect in a safe way. You're not overreacting. You're reacting to things that used to hurt you deeply, and your body doesn't know yet that the danger is gone. And here's one more pattern worth talking about. You may find yourself recreating similar dynamics in other relationships, not because you want to, but because it's what you know. Maybe you're drawn to emotionally unavailable people. Maybe you chase approval. Maybe chaos feels like home. It's not your fault. It's programming, and it can be rewritten. Becoming aware of the patterns is the first step. From there, you can choose differently, slowly, consciously, and with compassion for the part of you that still seeks what once hurt you. So what do you do with all of this? You learn to listen to your body. You start small. You rest more. You say no once. You cry without apologizing. You tell someone the truth about how you're feeling. You practice being kind to yourself, not perfectly, but consistently. And most importantly, you give yourself permission to feel safe again. Because here's the truth, the damage wasn't your fault, but the healing is your responsibility, not because you owe it to anyone else, but because you deserve peace. Maybe the relationship ended months ago, or years. Maybe you've healed in many ways. You're functioning again, laughing more, working, living. But when it comes to love, something still feels off. You want connection, you want closeness, but something inside you hesitates. Let's talk about why. Toxic relationships don't just hurt you while you're in them. They change how you relate to love itself. You might find yourself constantly second-guessing other people's intentions. When someone is kind, you wonder what they're really after. When someone is distant, it feels painfully familiar. When someone is consistent, you find yourself bored. You're not broken. Your heart just hasn't learned yet what safe love feels like. One of the biggest leftover wounds is hypervigilance. You're always scanning for signs that it's happening again, that someone's about to hurt you, lie to you, abandon you. You check their tone, you analyze their texts, you replay conversations over and over in your head, trying to make sure nothing was off. You may even test them, subtly pushing them away just to see if they'll come back. That's not manipulation. That's trauma. You're not trying to play games. You're trying to feel safe. Some people react in the opposite way. They rush into connection, hoping that new love will erase the old pain. You meet someone and suddenly they're everything. You ignore red flags. You excuse behavior that reminds you of your ex because this time is different. But what you're really chasing isn't love. It's relief. Relief from loneliness, from emptiness, from all the self-doubt that's been eating at you since the last relationship broke you down. And when that new person fails to fill the void, you crash, hard. This cycle doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, but it also makes you vulnerable to repeating the same patterns with new people. You might also notice that you pull away just when things start getting real. You crave intimacy, but when someone gets too close, you shut down. Maybe you disappear emotionally. Maybe you sabotage the connection. Maybe you convince yourself they're going to leave anyway, so you leave first. This is called an avoidant response, and it's common in survivors of emotional abuse, because closeness used to mean vulnerability, and vulnerability used to get weaponized. Your nervous system learned that intimacy equals danger. So even when you're with someone kind, your body tenses, your heart backs away. And then there's the trust issue. You want to trust. You want to believe people mean what they say, but your brain remembers all the times someone pretended to love you while quietly tearing you apart. You may start comparing everyone to your ex. You expect the worst. You assume every disagreement means the beginning of the end. That level of mistrust can become exhausting both for you and the people who try to love you. But again, it's not because you're cold or dramatic, it's because you've been trained to protect yourself. Rebuilding trust isn't about being naive. It's about learning to feel safe while staying grounded in reality. Another painful truth: toxic relationships can warp your sense of what love even is. If you only knew love as control, jealousy, or chaos, then calm, respectful love might feel unfamiliar or even wrong. You might say, "It's too easy. There's no spark. I don't feel the intensity I used to feel." But sometimes, what you're really saying is, "This person isn't triggering my trauma the way I'm used to." That spark you miss might not be love. It might be adrenaline. It might be your body mistaking anxiety for passion. And learning the difference between the two, that's part of healing. Sometimes survivors overcorrect in future relationships. You don't want to be hurt again, so you lay out all your trauma up front. You say things like, "I have trust issues. I don't do drama. I'm not putting up with any BS." And while being clear is good, this can also become armor. It says, "I'm protecting myself from you, just in case." But love isn't a battlefield. It's a dance. And sometimes you have to take the armor off a little at a time to let someone meet the real you. Let's talk about sex, too. For many survivors, intimacy becomes complicated. You might feel disconnected during sex, or overly anxious, or you crave physical connection but feel ashamed after. Sometimes your body remembers things your mind doesn't. Maybe you gave in when you didn't want to, just to avoid a fight. Maybe you were touched in ways that weren't gentle. Maybe consent wasn't always respected. So now, even in safe situations, your body says, "I'm not okay." That's not dysfunction. That's a survival response. And with the right support, those associations can slowly be rewired. And here's one more thing you might not expect. You might fear becoming the toxic one in your next relationship. You remember the gaslighting, the control, the yelling, and you worry, "What if I'm doing that now?" This fear is actually a sign of growth. People who are toxic rarely question their own behavior. The fact that you're aware, cautious, reflective, that means you're healing. But it's important to remember that healing isn't perfection. You might still overreact. You might struggle to communicate. You might mess up. That doesn't make you toxic. That makes you human. Healing means learning to take accountability without shaming yourself. So what does real love feel like after a toxic relationship? At first, it might feel quiet. It might feel unfamiliar. It might feel a little boring. But soon, you start to notice new things. You don't have to explain every emotion. You don't feel scared when they're silent. You laugh without wondering if it'll be used against you. You speak your mind without rehearsing every word. You stop walking on eggshells. You start walking in your truth. That's not boring. That's peace, and you deserve it. If this spoke to you, even a little, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I've got more coming your way to help you heal, rebuild, and find peace again. You're not alone in this. See you in the next one.